Hi there. Welcome to Commodities. I'm Lindsay Biscaya. Here's some of the stories we're tracking for you in the BNN Bloomberg newsroom. Bloomberg is reporting Canada is set to announce a deal to supply Germany with LNG. The report says the gas will be shipped from a floating export facility off the north coast of BC. That's received regulatory approval. That facility is backed by several companies, including Blackstone, funded Western LNG, and the Nezga Nation. The investors are planning a facility capable of producing 12 million metric tons a year of LNG. An American firm, Northern Oil and Gas, is acquiring a stake in Calgary-based Parallax Energy. The $350 million cash and stock deal between the two privately held companies will give Northern a 25% interest in light oil producing properties and 75,000 acres in the Duvernay Shale Basin in Alberta. Under the agreement, Parallax will continue to operate the assets owned by Northern. And the price of aluminum is on the rise. The metal hit a 4-year high of more than $3,600. Traders are concerned Chinese smelters will be asked to trim production amid a nationwide inspection of key industries' energy use and emissions. China's aluminum smelters have been running beyond capacity to capitalize on a global shortage caused by the conflict in the Middle East. Chinese authorities are now moving to rein in that overproduction as inventories swell. Okay, let's take a look at how some key commodities are trading today. We'll start with energy prices. So you can see the price of oil. It was rising earlier today. It's down by almost 3%. This comes amid the latest U.S. strikes on Iran. It is muddying the outlook for a peace deal between the two sides. But there is still talk that there is a peace deal within negotiations at the moment. And so that's potentially why the price of oil is down today. We're seeing gasoline also down by more than 7% at the moment. And natural gas prices, which have been rising throughout the morning, they're down ever so slightly by 0.2%. We'll take a look at where some of the metals are trading now. We'll start with gold. It is down by 0.5% as investors watch this ongoing conflict in the Middle East. It is stoking fears of higher inflation. We're seeing the price of gold drop because of that. Silver trading modestly higher. It's been up 3 of the past 4 sessions, and today it's up by 0.8%, at least at the moment. And then copper also up by 0.4%. And if we take a look at where some of the agricultural commodities are trading, wheat is extending the longest losing streak since early January. It's down by almost 2% at the moment. Soybean futures and corn futures also trading down. Okay, for a closer look at agricultural commodities, Mike McGlone, senior commodity strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence, joins us now to break a couple of talking points down. Mike, it's good to see you. So a number of different things: corn, soybean, wheat, crude oil, U.S. bonds, all likely have peaked and are facing post-inflation deflation into the end of the year. Tell us more about all these different commodities and why they're facing this.
Well, hello, Lindsay. Most notably corn, soybeans, and wheat. I was in the Corn Belt last week. Emergence is coming up. Prices are elevated. Hedge funds are really strong. And the market's case basically has to have some kind of drought in the Corn Belt and or crude oil to stay above $100 a barrel, which is probably counter what Mr. Trump needs for the midterms, for prices to stay elevated. So corn reached around $5 per bushel. That's a pretty good resistance level. Soybeans reached around $12 per bushel, around pretty good resistance. And they're well above U.S. costs of production, and there's massive supply out of South America. So to me, the risks are we get a normal driving season, I'd say a normal growing season, don't get the drought. Maybe Mr. Trump's able to get crude oil back lower the way he wants, and everything trickles lower. And the thing to remember is we had crude oil, WTI pump above $100 a barrel last week, and bond yields in the U.S. reached a peak around $5.20, 5.2%. I think they're all trickling lower. It's going to take something unusual to keep all these things higher.
For grains in particular, you mentioned this, like a good growing season. Seasonality is a top factor here. Is that right?
Absolutely. Well, first, seasonality. Grains typically make peaks in April and May, right when emergence starts, when you first see the green shoots coming up, and then the market realizes, okay, we might get a normal crop. What's different this year compared to the last time right after President Xi and President Putin met is what's different is prices are elevated and hedge funds are really long. Managed money net positions, i.e. hedge funds, are about the longest they've been since around 2022. So they're bullish, they're long, and the U.S. corn soybean price is a bit of a premium to prices in Brazil. The last time President Trump and President Xi met, which was fourth quarter last year, U.S. soybeans were at a discount and hedge funds were short. So I'm worried about that price around 12, so it's going to head back towards 10 in soybeans.
Okay, let's talk about Donald Trump a little bit more because you mentioned midterms. They are coming up this fall. What does Trump need for midterms at this moment?
Well, that's the key thing in commodities. We have the leader of the world's largest energy producer and a net exporter of crude oil and the largest exporter of LNG. He instituted this attack on Iran. It's pumped prices in the short term, but he needs lower prices, lower energy, lower inflation, and lower interest rates for the midterms for Republicans to have any chance. And I think he's going to get it. And then we also have the next presidential election. So there's a lot of motivation for these levels to go lower. It's just a question of how he's going to figure out how to do it in the Gulf.
All right, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Mike McGlone, Senior Commodity Strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence. Always appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much. Up next, Brent rose today while WTI traded lower after the U.S. struck missile launchers in southern Iran. We're back with more on that after the break. Oil is trading mixed today after the U.S. military said it conducted self-defense strikes in southern Iran, targeting missile launch locations and vessels, allegedly trying to deploy mines. Iran has vowed to retaliate, complicating peace talks that were said to be progressing just days ago. So let's bring in Rory Johnston, founder of Commodity Contacts. It's great to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think the latest exchange between the U.S. and Iran has hindered any ongoing peace talks that were happening?
I mean, this is, it's watching the bouncing ball at this stage. Over the weekend, we were supposed to have some kind of peace deal signed on Sunday. And over time, that deadline kept getting pushed further and further back. And it just seems like we are still spinning our wheels on many of the exact same details that these talks have been derailed on repeatedly over the past month. Things like the status of Lebanon in the war, that Iran wants the war stopped on all fronts, whereas Israel still wants to continue its campaign against Hezbollah. The aspects of the nuclear dust, as Trump calls it, or the highly enriched material. Actually, we've seen some, Trump potentially cede ground on this a little bit, saying that rather than it needing to be returned to the United States or turned over to a third-party country like Russia or China, that maybe you could actually, destroy it or dilute it domestically under observation. But I think all of these things are continuing disagreements, and there are many of the same disagreements that Tehran and Washington have been having for months now, even preceding the war.
The U.S. has characterized its latest actions as defensive strikes. Would you consider Iran's reported efforts, meanwhile, to lay mines in the Strait to be an attack on the U.S.?
Well, I think from the fairness of the U.S. perspective, I think if Iran is negotiating in good faith, I think adding additional mines to the Strait would be acting in poor faith. So I think that is a reasonable criticism from the U.S. side. However, I think continuing to try and characterize talks as, highly amenable and that these things are progressing very rapidly, I think obviously a return to kinetic strikes after weeks of no attacks is a sign that talks are not going that well. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, we have also seen some sign in Iran that you could see at least loosening pressure on domestic constituencies. We've seen a return that Iran is trying to turn back on the internet in large parts of Iran, which has been turned off for months now. So there are, areas of optimism. But again, at the core, these talks have reached optimistic points repeatedly over the past nearly 3 months. And every time we almost get to the ending, some kind of competing interpretations of the details or the ordering of the details inevitably derails again. So, we might be there, but, don't count the eggs until they hatch here.
Right. And obviously, one of the big reported topics on the agenda has been uranium recently. So if the U.S. is unable to accept Iran's enriched uranium, which alternate country do you think might both parties consider like a suitable country to actually receive it?
Yeah, so I think in this, both Russia and China have been mentioned in the past, although I do think, when Iran has talked about doing that, it's always been under the, they need some kind of guarantees that if talks are derailed, that the highly enriched material would be returned to Iran. And I think those guarantees are hard to iron out in this kind of context, which is why I think was it yesterday or the day before, we saw Trump begin to cede ground saying that they could dilute or destroy under some kind of watchful eye domestically, which again feels like a concession on the Trump administration's side. And I think that's the kind of thing we're going to need to see. I think this war will finally end and Hormuz will finally be reopened once the White House comes a little bit closer to the Iranian side and Iran can declare victory here, at least in eyes of their domestic constituencies.
Right. But you think the days of 100+ ships passing through the strait are maybe behind us even after this conflict ends?
I think at least for the next couple of months, the days of 100+ ships crossing are behind us. Now, importantly for the oil market in particular, which is kind of my focus here, we don't need to get back to pre-war levels exactly because we have diverted some ships. So even getting back to, let's say, 65 or 70% of pre-war flow would probably be enough to settle down aspects of the oil market, but that's not going to, finish the job for fertilizers or LNG or other commodities that haven't been able to be rerouted. But fundamentally, as of today, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. And I think one of the things that's adding further confusion to this is that you have comments from the Iranian side saying, like, look, we're actually letting 30 to 40 ships through a day. But those are not the ships like you're showing on your screen here, tankers and large cargo carriers. Many of these are small fishing ships that are essentially being counted in this. But in terms of the ships that you're showing on your screen right now, we're only still getting between 3 and 7 of those across every day. And that's what we need to see return back to, 100+ voyages to really see the end of this. But that's going to take months at this stage.
Interesting. I don't think we have viz of the smaller ships that you're referring to, but that's good to know. But, speaking of that, the U.S. Navy's been discreetly escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz recently. We've seen reports of an ADNOC tanker crossing the area. Will Iran face increasing challenges in trying to police the Strait of Hormuz as this continues?
I think that's, just adding to the confusion. I think that was something that we saw. I think the Wall Street Journal reported that this morning, that you basically had some kind of partial restart of Project Freedom. But then the U.S. Navy and CENTCOM came out and denied that these reports were, that these escorted transits were occurring. So there's lots of noise out there right now. And I think if that were happening, and again, I don't have independent verification, but if that were happening, it would put a lot of pressure on the Iranians to potentially show that, you can't just come in and begin escorting ships out. So I think that's the challenge here, is that, any action by one party kind of prompts a reaction from the other, and that's how we end up in this spiral.
For sure. Okay, Rory Johnston, founder of Commodity Contacts. So good to get your opinion on this. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Canada makes a major play for Arctic sovereignty using Made in Canada energy solutions. We've got details on that after the break. Two Canadian companies are teaming up to solve one of the country's biggest strategic challenges: reliable power and secure connectivity in the Arctic. Telesat and Canadian Strategic Missions Corporation just signed an MOU today. And to help us break it down, we spoke to Danielle Sachs, Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Strategic Missions Corporation.
Another kind of key foundational piece in us being able to deliver secure, reliable energy to the Arctic for Canada's defense and sovereignty, as well as dual uses. Bringing in and partnering with Telesat is a crucial piece to that. They have an amazing product and feature service in the Lightspeed network, being able to be a secure comms backlink, which we are going to need in delivering Arctic nuclear power.
Now, the MOU, it's a framework for technical discussions, potential pilot activities, coordinated engagement with government and industry. Is there any guarantees of anything going beyond that?
There are no guarantees of anything in life, Roger. I think this is a key first step towards us moving forward these discussions into concrete action. We've been working with Telesat for a little bit here, and I think putting this statement forward is a clear indication to the market. This is also about building infrastructure ahead of the need for the government. We know that the warfighter is going to need power in the Arctic by 2030, and we are trying to do everything we can in order to put those pieces in place as a commercial business. And I think that's what the private sector can really add to Canada's defense and sovereignty, the ability to move fast ahead of requirements, ahead of needs.
And how do you see the two of you working together? How are they going to be interconnected?
Yeah, so first of all, it's an honor to be able to work with Telesat. They're an incredible company, and really kudos to the leadership of Dan Goldberg there. We are going to be delivering nuclear energy systems to the Arctic, distributed across the Arctic, and we've been building cyber secure operational software with NATO under that. That all requires multiple levels of communication backlinks, and of course, satellite communications will play an incredible part in that. So we'll be working to integrate our operational software, our reactor operations with Telesat Lightspeed in order to be able to move that information data securely.
And with Lightspeed, what is so good about it? What do you like about it that you think it'll work so well with you?
Look, I mean, I'm not certainly one to speak to their technical capabilities. I think it's an incredible a system they're developing and moving forward. It's also a secure sovereign network. I mean, we see Lightspeed is clearly the choice for D&D and the Canadian Armed Forces, as well as many of our allies in an emerging sense for communications backbone, satellite communications, and laser links. So we see this as a key integrated piece of infrastructure that we need in building this all out.
And this is really quite a pat on the back for you as well, working with such an established company like Telesat and with the Canadian government.
Yeah, look, we're very grateful. Telesat's willing to take a chance on us here. We have been working for the last several years on delivering nuclear power systems for the Arctic. We have the only D&D contract in the nuclear sector in Canada. And so we've been great to have the support and investment of the Canadian government there, as well as NATO through a number of different platforms. So CSMC is working to deliver these systems as a dual-use technology for defense purposes, industrial purposes in the Arctic, things like ports and mines, as well as indigenous communities. So we are very thankful for the support of federal government, provincial governments, and everything in between. And
how is it going? I think you said 2030 is the hope. Is that ambitious, that time frame?
I mean, it should be ambitious, right? I think we need very strong and aggressive ambition in this country. We need to move on timelines that are relevant. And so we need to move as quickly as is safely possible. We believe this can be done to deploy at fleet scale, at least a number of sites by 2030. And that's what we're aggressively pushing to do. I think it is a key pillar. If you look at some of the goals and ambitions that the federal government, Carney's government, has talked about, building ports, infrastructure, defense infrastructure in the Arctic, that all requires energy. Talk to anyone who knows energy in the area. It's not going to come from diesel. We have maxed out our ability to bring diesel into the Arctic. There's a number of environmental challenges and everything else with it. The solution is nuclear. So Minister Hodgson said it a couple of weeks ago that the solution is nuclear for the Arctic. This is how Canada is going, and we are just building that as quickly as we can as a private company, raising capital, hiring people, and building capabilities.
You're raising capital. Do you see an IPO in the future?
I think you have to look at all liquidity options at every point along the way. So, yeah, I see that as an opportunity in the future. Can't really say when at this point in time, but it's definitely something that's somewhere on the radar.
That was Daniel Sachs, Chief Executive Officer of the Canadian Strategic Missions Corporation. Well, China's worst mining disaster since 2009 has killed at least 82 people at a coal mine in northern China. Bloomberg opinion columnist David Fickling argues that China is increasing safety risks by pushing coal production too hard in order to ensure energy security.
There have been huge improvements. You go back to the 2000s and there were 5,000 to 6,000 people dying a year in China's coal mines. And now there's still quite a lot of these accidents. This is a big individual one, but it's with the totals in the sort of hundreds per year. But coal mines are fundamentally dangerous environments. They're obviously full of coal dust, which is very flammable, but they also produce a lot of methane. And you mix those together, all you need is like a spark from a conveyor that's not been maintained properly. And of course, that that's always going to be a higher problem as as the government's pushing more output targets, produce more coal, maintenance standards tend to go down. All you need is for that to happen, and a very sort of serious accident can happen. And one thing I'd say about this mine, it's a coking coal mine. It's a deep mine. It sounds like the blast was about 300 meters below the surface. These mines tend to have a lot of methane. They tend to emanate a lot of methane. Coking coal is associated with these gassy deposits. Methane tends to increase the deeper down you go. So it's no surprise that this is the sort of mine where we're seeing this happening.
And you wrote that if reforms to the steel industry, David, might actually help this. How?
Yeah, I mean, this is an underappreciated point, but of course, coking coal is not burnt in power stations. It's used in blast furnaces for producing steel. And coking coal, as I said, is the type that is particularly associated with some of these disasters. A lot of the thermal coal for power stations comes from surface mines in open pits, and the risks are much lower. Now, China has plans to shift a lot of its steel production away from blast furnaces and to electric furnaces. They don't use coking coal, and as they're also better for the environment. The emissions from them are much lower as well. But the steel industry has been pretty reluctant to hit those targets. They wanted about 15% of steel from electric furnaces last year. The industry is way below that, and is actually there's some indications that it's sort of deteriorating further away from that. The industry seems reluctant to shift. A lot of the consumers, this shift from construction steel to manufacturing steel for cars and appliances, a lot of those consumers want some of the sort of higher quality steel that comes best from blast furnaces. So we're not seeing that movement yet. But when we do, that will decrease the demand for coking coal and the risk of these disasters.
And of course, working towards minimizing such incidents would also be helpful for energy security. I mean, how should we be thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, this, a thing to bear in mind about this, that a lot of the world at the moment is panicking about having too little methane, essentially, because it's LNG. This is the stuff that's blocked behind the Strait of Hormuz. But of course, in China, the problem right now is too much methane deep in these mines that's causing explosions. And I mean, that may seem a sort of trite comparison, but when you look at the scale of it, China's coal mines emit about 60 billion cubic meters of methane per year. China's imports of LNG are 100 billion cubic meters of LNG per year. So it's really on the same scale as that. This is a massive amount. Qatar's exports of LNG are similarly about 100 billion cubic meters a year. So if China could actually tap more of this stuff, and it is doing that in Shanxi, we're seeing a lot of coal bed methane is being tapped, then it improves its own energy security. It's not as dependent as imported gas.
Okay, that's it for us. Thank you for watching Commodities Today. You can always email your story ideas to commodities@bnnbloomberg.ca. And stay with us. The Close with Mirella Fernandez is up next.